good, not only like speedrunners of the game, but in particular randomizer runners in the game who are already in the losers bracket, not because they're not good, but just because you're going to run into a lot of other good players and somebody has to lose. So I honestly believe at this point there's not a single freebie match left in the tournament, so it should be fun. But here we go. We got Darko and Alucard starting their second race of the day. Chris, go ahead and give your prediction. What do you think we're going to see as the first item other than Morphine Ball?
I always like to say energy tank because it's the safest bet. But that's super boring, so.
Well, it just kind of is what it is. It's certainly the mathematical most likely one. But I'm going to guess this time, I'm going to go with Screw Attack.
Can Screw Attack spawn in Kraid or Blue Brinstar?
You know what? I don't know. It used to could. Maybe it can't anymore. I know that you can sometimes get it at BT. I'm going to go with Screw Attack even if it's impossible.
Fair enough.
You just got to believe.
Yeah, there's no moonfalls from either of these runners yet. That's too bad. Ooh, and Space Jump.
Wow. So we did get a fun one, huh?
That's pretty good. That opens up... what does that open up here?
Well, I believe Maniacal was making the point earlier, and by the way, we saw both runners. I do this all the time. They immediately go to shoot out the block and then turn into a ball, but they don't have Morph Ball, so they have to go back up. But I don't necessarily think that it, opens anything up in terms of it's the only item that can be used to get to a location, but it certainly makes a lot of things easier. Immediately, it opens up an easier path to wreck ship early. And in addition, if they happen to come across, gravity pretty early, but not high jump boots, it makes the lower Norfair entry a lot easier. So there's a lot of different types of things that it could lead to.
It's true. And you just noticed, I just noticed both of these runners here, not realizing that their first item was Space Jump, choosing to go for the damage boost there.
Yeah. The muscle memory is quite strong in a lot of these randomizers.
Yeah, and Space Jump is not typically an item that you see first.
It is not. I guess another thing that Space Jump would allow you to do, and again, I think we've seen at this point, there's been so many good runners who've pulled off a lot of really tough tricks, but you don't have to have a specific item to get to X-Ray early, but if you at least have Space Jump or Grapple, you can do it very, comfortably and easily. So at least here, both runners will be able to check X-Ray on their way down Red Tower.
Yeah, without Space Jump or Grapple, you usually need a few energy tanks to check X-Ray, and it can be pretty risky.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen some of the other runners, like in particular, I remember seeing Total and Ponk. I know I've seen Ponk do it at least twice, maybe 3 times. I've seen Total do it, and I think I've seen Sloters and maybe Zost, and maybe Fuzda as well. So, it's definitely something that is on the table, but at the same time, even one minor mistake can kind of be a setback depending on what items you go in there with. So it'll just be a lot easier for these guys to not have to worry about any of that and just use Space Jump to their advantage.
Definitely. And we see Darko picking up some more super missiles as he heads out of Blue Brinstar there.
Yeah, really nice climb by Alucard there. That was very impressive. As has been mentioned many times by a lot of the other speedrunners, but this is actually one of the more technically difficult moments of the entire, regular speed run. So seeing guys pull off a very crisp climb like that is always really cool.
Yeah, I think the climb is probably where I've reset the most out of all my runs.
Yeah, I can identify with that for sure.
Just an E-Tank at Bomb Chorizo.
No BT hype today.
So do you think either of these runners will head towards Gauntlet, or are they just going to make the safe play and head towards Brinstar?
Well, considering that they only have 5 power bombs and they don't have regular bombs or Screw Attack, you really can't, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think you can get out. I think you can get in, and you could, I guess, technically check the item if you wanted to, but there really wouldn't be, that wouldn't really be a technically or, I guess, strategically sound move. So I would assume that both runners will just keep making their way left.
That is true. It is a tremendous gamble to head towards Gauntlet with these items, so they are just making the safe play, heading towards Brinstar.
And we got a reserve at Terminator, which I believe that's 2 Terminator reserves in a row. I guess in a way, the reserve tank probably looks the most like a Terminator of any of the items since it's all silver and gray. So I guess that's appropriate. Plus, the worst thing about a reserve at Terminator is when you see it and you jump over it.
Yes.
You end up getting it later on your way back to Torian.
What do we got? We got X-Ray at the Brinstar Reserve, or that's... I can't remember. Is that a reserve tank, typically?
I'm sorry, I'm having to refresh a little bit. What was the item again?
X-Ray at the Brinstar green area.
Yeah, that's a reserve tank, yes.
Great. So X-Ray, probably worth picking up. I mean, if the runners find charge and plasma, that really makes their bot spoon, Phantoon, and Draygon fight very easy. It's one of those things where it's right there. You might as well pick it up.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, not to mention, if you know, it's kind of one of those things where you're only going to save a few seconds by not grabbing it, but at the, you know, later on, if you were to find the other requisite items, you'd save a ton of time. So it seems like a good investment.
Yeah, we have seen some intended use of X-Ray in this tournament at points. Like, for example, the Wrecked Ship Reserve saves you the trip from going all the way around. $30 supers from Alucard. That's pretty good. He's probably not going to need to pick up any more unless he doesn't find charge.
Yeah, 30 this early, once again, is just a pretty ridiculous number. It's going to make things a lot easier when going for those, the wave room, you know, with the supers. It's just kind of one of those things that'll make things a lot easier. So take a little bit of stress off of the runners.
Yeah, it also it really trivializes the Ridley fight, especially if they don't have charge.
Yeah, big time. I agree. That's, again, we always go back to that magic 30 number. Having that so early is really cool. Makes things more comfortable.
So if you were playing this seed, at this point, would you hunt for more minor items? I mean, obviously you might need a missile pack or two, but 30 supers, like, do you feel like you're set at this point, or do you need to hunt down some more?
Well, you know, I think this would be a situation. I think there's a lot of different opinions on this, and everybody kind of comes at it from a different angle. Personally, this is just me. I'm not saying this is correct at all, but I typically will continue to collect the ones that are easy, you know, like the ones that are just in my way. I typically will continue to collect just about every one of those until I get charged, just because I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm having to like really get lucky to find the right miners at the end or something if I don't find charge. So I typically will grab just about anything that's in my way. But some runners will sort of, I wouldn't call it a gamble, but they would just elect to, you know, skip a bunch of them and then hope to find charge and then have the time saved from not having all those many fanfares.
It's true. It does save 7 seconds every time, which I guess can add up.
It definitely can, especially like the other day I had, I believe 55 regular missiles in a race pretty early. So that's what, 11 fanfares. I mean, that's over a minute, so it definitely adds up.
For sure. And we see both of these runners picking up Various suit very, very early on. That's awesome.
I believe somebody in the previous chat wanted to call that oven mitts in exchange for us now referring to gravity suit as frog suit. So oven mitts has been acquired.
I was just called gravity swimsuit.
Yeah, I love that one too. That's great.
So Darko heading down red tower this time. Avoiding the suitless Meridia mishap that happened last race. Alucard with 45 supers, as Chad is pointing out. That's a lot. At this point,
a massive amount.
I really don't think you need more, unless you're just going for or counting on not finding charge.
Yeah, I mean, let me put it this way. And again, you know, I never want to come across as saying that like any strategy that I use is like, you know, correct or whatever, but we all have different levels of comfort. I pretty much will grab any super missile, even if I have charge. A lot of times I'll grab super missiles because if you don't have the full old route beam of plasma, ice and wave, and in particular, if you don't find plasma, the supers will greatly make up for themselves in terms of the time you spend on the fanfare when you get to the end of the game, like on Mother Brain and whatnot. So I kind of feel like supers never really have a chance to be, you know, not valuable or whatever. So even if I found more, I would still grab them at this point.
Yeah, and at this point, I imagine both of these runners are probably going to take the same route. Oh, actually, no. Darko heading up red tower right now.
Doing the same thing he did last time, yeah, without speed. And again, not necessarily a mistake. It just kind of comes down to what kind of risk he's willing to take. In theory, if you're going to go wreck ship first, what you would probably prefer to do is find a pretty big item in the first two spots and then just piece on out of there and hope that nothing else is up there. Unfortunately, it didn't work out last time that way. But, you know, Darko still managed to win, so you just kind of never know what'll happen. It's really ironic that Darko has a bunch of supers and not a single regular missile. And again, real quick, I've never seen this happen. But you actually need regular missiles to do well against Phantoon. So
that's right, because Phantoon is going to enrage otherwise.
Right. So even if he finds one pack at Moat here, it's still going to be difficult. You know, it's still going to be a difficult fight in terms of speed. So, and he doesn't have charge beam, so he can't, you know, pseudo screw. Oh man, he got really pretty fortunate right there. So, yeah, well, I think we might end up seeing a 5-missile Phantoon here, which I've never personally seen before. Should be interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty dicey ammo count for this fight.
Yeah, missiles. Okay, yeah, it looks like he's aware, and he's going to check down here as well and hope to find another missile pack. But missiles definitely have their use. Okay, now he's in much better shape. 10 is like new route or low percent ice. You would typically have this many missiles fighting Phantoon, so it shouldn't be a problem. But missiles definitely have their own use, in particular at the end of the game against Mother Brain 1, in terms of the count that you need to get the glass broken. So I never pass up at least getting to about, you know, 15 or so. Plus, if they end up finding more power bombs, you're probably going to want more than just 10 to get a crystal flash in.
Oh, and I think Alucard needs more missiles to set up the Kraid quick kill as well. Just kidding, he's fine.
Yeah, he went with the, I don't know what you call that. It's kind of like the charge one in terms of the way it's, the rhythm of it, but oh my goodness, oh baby. My favorite item in the game, high jump boots. Give a quick shout out to Cross Product. I believe it's also his favorite item. So that'll definitely help Alucard with his movement for the rest of the run.
Yeah, this game really sucks without high jump boots, so picking it up early on definitely saves time.
No doubt. In all seriousness, though, like, this is pretty absurd. Alucard having 45 supers, Varia, and high jump boots, for me, that would be like, I mean, unless I'm just overlooking something, especially with 5 energy tanks, that would be like instantaneous going to Lord Norfair. The only issue I see at the moment would be bombs, You can do it with only 5, but it's kind of tricky if you don't have Spring Ball or Speed Booster. But he's pretty much ready to take down Ridley. He just needs to make sure that he can get out.
And he also has the option to check the items in Business Center and Bubble Mountain before he heads down to Lower Norfair if he wants.
That's a good point. Darko having a very successful Phantoon so far. Not in any jeopardy at all of dying.
Yeah, and we can actually see that missile count at play here. Is he is having to farm a little bit to collect enough missiles to kill Phantoon.
Yeah, that's a good point. But he's through it now. To me, you know, obviously you're trying to go as fast as possible in any given moment, but to me, the Phantoon fight, of all the fights in the game, are kind of the one that you're just worried about, just making sure you survive. So good for Darko, and now he'll start checking some items. We got Wave once again. Two races in a row was at ice. All right, Chris, what do you think, man? What is Darko about to find over here?
I'm hoping for something huge like Gravity Suit, but honestly, it could just be a reserve. I don't know.
Let's find out.
Charge
oh my!
That's actually pretty huge, because now he doesn't have to hunt down any more minor items if he doesn't want.
He does not. Although at this point he just has regular beam. If he went through the rest of the game without getting another beam, he still could do okay with Mother Brain. But I think it's 300 charge shots to kill Mother Brain if you just have your pea shooter.
Something like that. Something that he'd probably like to avoid.
Yeah.
He's gonna check some more major items though, I'm sure, just to find hopefully some beam upgrade. And I mean, he still needs gravity. He still needs like speed booster, stuff like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Alucard did not find anything worthwhile at the high jump boots location. And now, since there are no hell runs going on, I would assume that he's going to head over to the Bubble Mountain area and start collecting other items and then kind of make a decision about Lower Norfair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on this one. I really think that Lower Norfair, just regardless of what he finds in Bubble Mountain, is probably the correct play. You're here and you can clear it, so you might as well.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, depending on what you find in Lower Norfair, people will a lot of times clean up Bubble Mountain afterwards anyway. So usually I just go ahead and clean it up early if I have Varia, just so I can have whatever extra items like for example, if Screw Attack is in one of these locations and you wait until after you're done with Lower Norfair, you pretty much didn't get any value out of it. So if you're going to check it anyway, check it early, get a little bit more leeway, get a few more strong items, and go from there.
Definitely. And Darko, just to point out, reset as he checks the wrecked ship energy tank. That's it was smart of him to save just in case it was a trash item like that. Well, I mean, energy tank's not always bad, but it's just not worth his time to pick up.
By the way, that regular bomb pickup and then super power bomb, pickup from Alucard, not super bomb, is actually pretty huge because at this point he literally has nothing to worry about in Lower Norfair other than just, you know, potentially taking too much damage. Since he doesn't have Screw Attack and he doesn't have Plasma, he has to be a little bit more careful with getting through all of the enemies down there. We've kind of talked about extensively how, you know, those enemies do a lot more damage than people realize. And so other than that, though, he's got all the requisite items to get in and out. All right, let's see what we got at Wreck Ship Reserve. Okay, so Darko not punished this time for not having speed, and his gamble pays off. It will pay off even more, though, if he can find another really strong item at the gravity location.
Yeah, and he's got one power bomb here, which I believe is all he needs to make sure he doesn't softlock here. I believe this is what we call the Cerberoth softlock.
Who named it that?
I believe that would be Cerberoth.
Yeah. That was a very unfortunate circumstance. I actually was watching that race when it happened, and I don't think I was doing commentary on it, but it was definitely one of those situations. There's just so many like really nuanced moments that can get you in trouble that you're just not really thinking about, you know? And that's one of them.
Yeah, in Randomizer, you have a collection of items that you wouldn't normally have, and you're missing something like you could be missing something crucial like bombs, and you don't think about that. Exactly. So you have to use power bombs to jump up, and that just can end up soft locking you there. It sucks.
Absolutely.
Darko checking his Tinder as he goes through the bowling chorizo room.
Last time it was charge. Let's find out what we get this time.
Speed booster. Wow. Okay.
My goodness. That's a really big one right there. You know, we didn't even really get a chance to bring this up in the last run. Real quick, grapple beam at the, I believe, wave location.
Right.
Really strong item. Well, it's not a huge item, but in my opinion, maybe a little bit better than it gets credit for. But the speed thing is very important because unless you know how to crystal flash clip, you got to have speed or ice to get through the pre-botwing room. And so every time that I find either speed or ice, I'm always, you know, at least a little relieved that I've got one of those major hurdles out of the way. Not to mention the fact that it's going to make his access to Bubble Mountain faster and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, being speed booster, boosting his speed, something you want to see in a speed run.
Yeah.
Very important for going fast.
Speed might be good for speed.
Checks out.
Here we have Darko killing all the frogs, collecting power bombs, and then he will make his way through the Hellway where he might farm some more frogs.
Yeah, and that's not something I ever think of when I'm doing a randomizer, is watching my power bomb count, so it's good that Darko's at least aware of it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good moment for him. I mean, sometimes that self-awareness can actually save you a lot of time.
Oh, and is he checking Waterway?
It looks like he is. I like this play a lot, actually. In particular, since, you know, if he assumes that he's the only player of the two that checked wreck ship early, then, you know, he's going to be the first one to have access to this item. Nice gate glitch there by Darko, and Alucard now making his way down to Lower Norfair after getting a very good first attempt lava dive. So my assumption would be Alucard will check screw, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. I feel like every time one of those big major items like gravity is out there and you know, hasn't been found yet, I feel like you got to check screw because you don't want to overlook it.
Yeah, and that's such a huge payoff. And if you miss that, just, you know, that'll cost you the race.
Not to mention, I think Alucard has enough super missiles to miss a few on the gate glitch, so he should be fine.
Yeah, he can try that a few times if he needs to, but he's okay. So this is interesting from Darko. I wonder if this is going to pay off for him. Because like Waterway is so far out of the way for him, this is probably going to cost him a couple minutes if it's not a good item here. Oh, gravity! Oh, there you go.
My goodness. Wow. Okay, Darko in a very strong position here because, like, if you think about it in terms of routing, okay? Yeah, Alucard has the more, I guess what you would call optimal routing. The fact that he went from Kraid directly to Lower Norfair for Ridley. But Darko is pretty much not going to miss any of the major items that Alucard already found, in particular high jump boots. And I think it was an E-tank after Kraid. So, you know, and especially since he already has space jump. So that's probably going to save him a lot of time. He's not going to have to wonder where gravity is for the next, you know, 3 major sections of the game, whereas Alucard is going to have to go up to wreck ship, get all the way up there, decide if he wants to go back. So I would say at this point, Darko probably in a bit of a commanding position, even though technically doesn't have the superior routing.
Yeah, it's I'd say a pretty significant gamble. on Darko's end, and it's paying off huge here. Because like, what's Alucard even going to do? Is he going to check Waterway on the way up to Red Ship? And if he doesn't do that, then we just know that he's going to fall so far behind.
Right.
So that's huge for Darko. I would almost say that this might be the race for Darko based on this gamble here.
Spazer at Firefly.
Spazer's certainly helpful, but since he doesn't have Charge Beam, he can't really capitalize on it right now.
Yeah, that's true. In particular down here, most of the... Like, basically in Lower Norfair, if you don't have Plasma or Screw Attack, it's almost not even worth trying to kill a lot of the creatures because they just have too much health. So it'd probably just be better to try to either dodge them or just, tank a hit and keep moving, depending on your health situation. But Spazer, while it definitely has some use and can be helpful, in this particular case, not overly useful.
It's not the beam upgrade he wants to see, as we can see him hitting those key hunters and taking 100 damage each time.
In other words, it's not the beam he was looking for.
Yeah.
All right, so Alucard was able to get the Kraid quick kill previously. Let's find out what Darko has in store for us. Oh, got him. Very nice. Kraid was not able to stand up at any point during this race. Good job by Darko there.
Yeah, no stand-up glitch here. And there's high jump boots for Darko.
And I gotta say, seeing him again feels just like the first time. Oh, baby.
So Alucard's kind of got to be careful going into this Ridley fight. He does have 42 supers, but as Ridley does take 30, he's got to be a little conservative and make sure that he doesn't miss, a lot of his projectiles. So
yeah, another thing that gets overlooked sometimes, and I could be mistaken. I'm sure a lot of the more, knowledgeable players in the chat will correct me if I'm wrong, but when you only have Varia and don't have Gravity and you're doing Lower Norfair, it's especially dangerous because I think you get 50% extra damage reduction. So I think every one of these key hunters is doing like 100, basically one E-tank a pop. And Ridley does more damage too. So even though he's got the, a really safe amount of ammo in terms of getting the kill, he really needs to be careful because it looks like he's got a lot of health, but he's going to take more damage from Ridley, if I recall correctly, every time he gets hit.
Yeah, so at this point, it's basically the same thing as going into Ridley with 2.5 E-tanks with Gravity, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, he should have no problem. If you manipulate this fight well, you can do it. I'm not going to say easily without getting hit, but it's definitely something that you can do without too much issue. But everybody knows that Ridley likes to troll. And so sometimes if you have maybe if you're having an off day and you don't perform up to your normal standards, you can actually get killed.
That being said, that was an incredible fight from Alucard. He only got hit twice there.
Yeah, great performance.
We're ordered with Plasma. Nicely done.
Very nice. That will make getting out way easier. He's going to be able to clip through every key hunter. Well, it doesn't mean he will, because the patterns can be kind of tricky, but he's going to have the opportunity to clip through every key hunter and even stand still and kill some of these other enemies without having to take too much time if he needs to be careful. He just accidentally fell, Alucard did, into the lava. One thing that I forget about sometimes is, like, if you speedrun this game, you're so accustomed to having gravity there and you just roll down into that lava and kind of run through it for speed. But when you don't have gravity, you can't do that. And so I've jumped down there many times and remembered afterwards that I couldn't do that.
Yeah, definitely something I've overlooked when running randomizers. So charge was at wreck ship reserve, right? No, wreck ship right side, whatever that is.
The super missile location in vanilla. That's the one spot they added in the randomizer logic or I guess I don't know if logic's the right term here, but they added that spot in the randomizer to give an extra major item location to wreck ship. In vanilla, that's just a super missile pack.
So it's probably that, and gravity suit is probably what Alucard is looking for right now. And since we know that's a ways off for him, this is looking pretty bleak for Alucard right now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to assume that Darko is still in an advantageous position. But again, you just never know what choices they're going to make or how well they're going to execute in different spots. So we'll just kind of have to see how Darko manages this lower Norfair segment, although he should be even safer since he has gravity suit.
Yeah, that is true. And then you can start seeing things like right now where he's choosing to farm. This is going to set him back a little bit, and he's probably aware that he has a fairly commanding lead right now because of the risks he took. But you still can't afford to give up a lead due to stuff like this.
Yeah, I also just realized that... Okay, here's... two things. Number one, kind of a troll that Firefly had Spazer, and then literally the next item was Plasma. But in addition, Alucard still obviously does not know where Charge Beam is, and will probably at this juncture start to collect a lot more miners in the case that he doesn't find it. I mean, he's actually already pretty close to having enough from Mother Brain, but it wouldn't surprise me if he got a few extras. So that's a little bit of time that he could have saved if he had known, if he knew, where Charge was or that he was going to get it. Whereas Darko at this point really doesn't have to collect any more miners unless he wants like another power bomb pack or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also of note, Darko, did he even check Bubble Mountain there?
I don't believe he did, no, because Bubble Mountain had bombs, and then I want to say 2 E-tanks, maybe?
Yeah, so that's a pretty bold play here. Not checking Bubble Mountain. Is he checking Screw Attack? No, he's not.
He's not. At this point, the only thing left that he, quote-unquote, would really need is either 2 more power bomb packs or ice. In terms of, like dealing with the Metroids. I mean, technically you could go into Torian with only 5 power bombs, but it probably wouldn't be overly advised. You'd have to get incredibly lucky drops, and even then you'd probably have to backtrack once or twice. But yeah, it looks like he's skipping a lot of the items at Bubble Mountain, and will make a decision on whether he wants to check those later. And he's also not going to check Screw Attack. But as we know, Screw Attack only had, I believe, an E-tank?
Yeah, it wasn't anything useful. Alucard checking Croc. I think... I don't know if this is... like, how do you feel about this decision?
Well... Okay, if I was in his position, I probably would check it because, it's kind of hard to say, but at the same time, you don't want to, if gravity was down here, he doesn't know where gravity is, right? So he's already exhausted Bubble Mountain. He's already exhausted Lower Norfair. I think he has no idea where it is.
I think Darko might have just softlocked himself.
Oh, he did.
Well, that's terrible.
Where did he save?
Wow. So I guess he didn't realize he had 2 power bombs, and he needed the last. He needed the power bombs of shame to actually be power bombs, or he softlocked himself there. But he didn't have enough power bombs to head out of there. So
well, the thing about that would be, technically speaking, unless I'm mistaken. Well, I guess so. If you were not very careful with your powerbomb account, I guess you could softlock there. But I would have assumed, okay, let me talk through this. I'm sorry, it's just kind of confusing. So basically, when you enter Lower Norfair and you enter the room with all the pillars, you know, you have 5 power bombs. Because I'm thinking about this in terms of old route, right? So you enter with 5. You have to use 2 to get through. And I think he even probably did a fast pillars, but let's just imagine worst case scenario. So now you have 3, and you got to use 1 in the worst room in the game. So now you have 2. But when you get up to the top of Amphitheater, you should be able to go to Firefly and refill your power bombs all the way to 5, which is, I think, what would be the play would be. At that point, you need 2 to get into Wasteland, and then you need 2 to get through the little like canal or whatever, and then you need 1 to get to the bottom where the metal pirates are. So he definitely could have, you know, managed it with 5. He just would have needed to have refilled at Firefly. I guess he didn't choose to do that.
That's right. He only had 4 going into that segment. And I would have liked to see him at that point just head towards Wasteland and hope the Disgigas drop power bombs for him.
Yeah, because the chances would have been low, but they wouldn't have been that low. Also, this is another one of those just kind of in general things. You know, a lot of times people in the chat kind of like poke fun or say that they, you know, and I've even heard commentary from people saying that they disagree wholeheartedly when people do safety saves. I do not at all, because, you know, a safety save only takes, I don't know, 10 seconds or so. And there's not too many scenarios where you're going to win or lose by that amount. And if he had simply safety saved prior to heading down there at that, I mean, literally there was a save station right above him, then that would have protected him from, you know, an accidental mistake. So it's kind of unfortunate that that happened. And all of a sudden, Alucard is now completely back in this race.
Yeah, it just got a whole lot closer. It's unbelievable. Darko still has to fight Kraid again, too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Darko lost a lot of time. The only thing that's going in his favor at the moment is the fact that he knows where gravity is, and Alucard does not, which means that Alucard could, I don't know, now that I'm thinking about it, is there any other place Alucard could go other than Waterway when he's done with wrecked ship? I mean, he checked everything in Norfair and Lower Norfair. I guess that's literally the last location he could possibly go to.
Well, the other thing he could check is in Meridia at Mama Turtle, but like that's, I don't think that, I think it's just quicker to check Waterway.
Yeah, I think most players, now we've seen Wild do this already in the tournament where he, you know, he's kind of so well versed with his abilities and so good at Suitless Meridia that I think he knew that gravity could be at Waterway and just skipped it and did Suitless. But technically, most players are probably going to go check it. So I thought that might be an opportunity to protect some time, but I actually, now that I think about it, don't think that that's going to happen, considering there's really nothing else for Alucard to check.
When he's checking Gauntlet, that's interesting. I wonder what he's looking for there, because it can't be a suit. He must know that.
I bet he's looking for speed. He probably just wants to make sure if it's speed or not before he goes to wreck ship. Because imagine gravity, like imagine speed being here and gravity being at reserve. He would, right. if he didn't come over here and check it, he would basically have to go all the way back. So I think that's probably what he's thinking, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But clearly finding a good item with Spring Ball there.
So I actually don't know who's ahead at this point, because Darko has the knowledge of where a few items are. And but Alucard, I mean, he's still got to do wreck ship, and then he's got to do, he's got to check Waterway.
I'm gonna give the nod to Alucard, and again, it's kind of hard to tell, but just in terms of pathing alone, Darko has to go from where he currently is all the way down to essentially the southernmost. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, I think Ridley is like literally the southernmost room in the game, the most, you know, furthest away from anything else. So he's got to path all the way down there, come all the way back, and then still do Meridia, whereas Alucard simply has to kill Phantoon, you know, get through the wrecked ship, which, you know, it's not super fast, but it's not that long either. I mean, the wreck ship is a pretty small area, and the bowling to Rizzo segment, while it's slow, it's not as slow as like literally going all the way through Lower Norfair. So I'm going to assume at the moment that Alucard has the advantage, not to mention the fact that Darko would now have to recollect wave at ice and stuff like that if he elected to.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right on that one. I think Alucard is probably in the lead here.
Both of these races between the two players so far have just been so back and forth. Like, this has been some of the most interesting circumstances I've seen in a tournament race yet. Like, there's just been so many twists and turns.
Yeah, I couldn't have seen that coming. That was very unexpected to see Darko softlock there. And he's choosing to go to Meridia. Oh, man. I don't know what to make of this.
Maybe he's only going to try to get this miner right here and see if it's a power bomb. That seems to be what he's trying to set up. This is a pretty tight... Oh, no. That's a pretty tight short charge. There's a little bit easier but slower way to do it from up there. Maybe he's going to check... I'm not sure. If he decides to go all the way here, I'm pretty surprised by that because, like, you would really be going out of your way to go all the way to Draygon only to have to path back to Lower Norfair. Especially given that he doesn't have high jump boots, which it won't hurt him as bad with space jump in the water, but I mean, he knows it's right at Kraid, so.
Yeah, and not having high jump boots for the Draygon fight actually can really screw you up if you're trying to kill Draygon with Shine Sparks.
I completely agree. It's a lot more, I mean, it definitely can still be done, but it's a lot trickier for sure.
Wow, and I know he's looking for power bombs here, and all he finds is super missiles. So Alucard dispatching Phantoon. And at this point, yeah, I look like he is definitely in the lead here.
I would say at this point that Alucard is very significantly ahead, in particular based on Darko's pathing here. I mean, again, you know, runners choose to do things for different reasons. So I'm not necessarily questioning what Darko's electing to do. It's just that, in theory, it's going to require a lot more back and forth than if he had gone down to Lower Norfair.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's possible that Darko, like, he knows what's on the way to Lower Norfair, but he's kind of gambling on hoping there is an item in Meridia that will put him even further ahead. I don't know what he could be looking for, though.
Yeah, I don't really think he's looking for anything. I mean, the kind of what we mentioned earlier, the only item that he really needs is ice or more power bombs. Other than that, he's got, you know, enough stuff to finish the game. So, yeah. And we just saw Darko skipping an energy tank there. I'm certain he's under the impression that he's behind now. Right.
That's the only reason I can think of to skip that, because it's a fairly free energy tank. But if you're trying to save, 7 seconds, you can do it right there. It just makes for a much more risky play.
Yeah, I probably would have grabbed that anyway, especially if I was about to get ready to try to Shine Spark Draygon, because the Draygon fight is definitely not free. And depending on what happens, you can actually get yourself killed from chain damage. And he's going in with a pretty low amount of health. I mean, I'm not suggesting that he can't pull it off. I mean, people pull this kind of stuff off in regular runs all the time. But it definitely opens up more risk.
Yeah, I don't like going into Draygon with only 3 E-tanks here.
Alucard... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's kind of beyond the scope of what I can capable of, so... like, I'm not very good at this game, but it just worries me a lot to see only 3 E-tanks.
Yeah, he can definitely do it. It's just, like I was saying, it's just kind of like one of those situations where you're exposing yourself to more risk than you would normally have.
It looks like he's practiced this before, though, as he nails those Shine Sparks.
Oh, yeah. And Alucard found the E-Tank, by the way, at the E-Tank location in wrecked ship and is now making his way and will be very, very pleased to find Speed Booster at Gravity. And then after that, you would have to assume that he will most likely head to Waterway to find his Gravity. Darko should be able to finish Draygon here with those 10 supers. There we go.
Yeah, actually making it look pretty easy there.
This is interesting. I don't know if he's gonna... It looked almost like he was thinking about not checking, but now I think he's remembering that he still needs ice. I bet that's the only reason he's checking this item.
Just an E-Tank? I'd pick it up if I were you, Darko.
Yeah. I guess not to mention he doesn't know where Screw Attack is either, and technically if that was in there, it would help with lower Norfair, because he knows he still has to go there.
Yeah, so Darko with 3 bosses left? No, 2 bosses left, excuse me. Still has to kill Kraid, still has to kill Ridley. Alucard with just Draygon right now. And Alucard with a much more complete collection of items.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that Alucard already has the 15 power bombs, so at this point he is, you know, essentially assuming that he's going to check. Oh, maybe he didn't. Yeah, it looks like he didn't go check what was up there earlier because he didn't have a speed booster. But anyway, I believe it's only an E-Tank up there, unless I'm mistaken. So he's going to grab the super missile here. I guess he's not going to get the super missile, but he's going to try to check the E-Tank up here. But other than ice, Alucard really just, he can finish the game once he finds gravity.
Picking up his 14th super missile pack. Now he has 70 supers. That's a lot. Definitely don't need that many if you have charge beam. Oh, there's ice beam. Some nice intended use of X-ray scope. I love it.
This jump a little bit trickier, obviously, without spring ball, but he handles it no problem. And now he's got to get the jump up into that little crevice there. There we go. Very nice. However, even though he found ice and it definitely makes things faster in Torian, and it's pretty clear, like, I would be shocked if Alucard checked this location. It's really not going to make that much time up, though, because, again, Alucard already has the requisite 15 power bombs. So, assuming Alucard goes straight down to Waterway and collects gravity, it's going to be very, very difficult for Darko to... I mean, at this point, I would even wager that Alucard is 7-8 minutes ahead.
Yeah, he's pretty far ahead. And since he's just checking gravity right now, that puts him in go mode. So Darko heading towards Kraid. We've seen him do this already, but because of the soft lock, now he has to do it again. It's a good thing that he didn't forget that he has to kill Kraid again.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we spoke too soon when we said that there was going to be no Kraid DLC this time. Technically, there's one more shot at it. And also, I guess it's definitely unfortunate for Darko, but the one good thing for Chad is we get to see high jump boots again.
That's right. That's 3 times in one race.
And Alucard, I'm sure, feeling some relief now that he doesn't have to do a suitless, not saying that he couldn't do it, but most of the time it's not what runners would prefer. So now he can head to Meridia and take care of business. That's your third Kraid quick kill of the race. Nice job there by Darko. And oh baby, high jump boots. So yeah, pretty much at this point, I mean, there's really not a ton left to say in terms of management. It's mostly just execution. Alucard has every single item other than ice. Does not have to have ice for anything in Meridia in terms of progression. And he has the power bombs to manage, you know, assuming he refills at the ship after Meridia. He's got plenty of power bombs to get through Torian without issue. And even if he wasn't comfortable with the speed booster Zeb skip, has just an unbelievable amount of supers and regular missiles already. He could just blow right through those things with supers and not worry about it. So he's in a really good position right now.
With 70 supers, you don't need to know how to do Zeb skip.
No, and I mean, you know, it's definitely a good trick to know how to do, but I'll admit, like, I'm pretty bad at it. Like, even in my race the other day when I didn't have ice, I just went ahead and killed everything. So it's just nice to have that amount of ammo to know that you don't have to sit there and attempt that over and over again if you know, if it's a little tight.
Another minor time save, the chat's pointing out. Alucard has X-ray, charge, and plasma, so he's going to make very quick work of Botsman and Draygon here.
Absolutely.
Darko farming supers, not a bad move before the Ridley fight, as that's going to be his fastest way to deal damage.
For sure. Unless he wants to low percent ice fight Ridley with charge ice, which I would not recommend in a randomizer setting, because that fight would take a really long time. But he won't find plasma until after Ridley, and he could technically find Spacer at Firefly beforehand. But even in those situations, just me personally, I could be wrong. Even if I had old route beam and 30 supers, I might would just do the 30 super fight against Ridley. I think it's actually a little bit faster.
And Darko didn't check what was that screw attack earlier, did he?
He did not, because at that point he was already, you know, in good shape other than Ice Beam. So Alucard getting ready for Draygon as Darko enters lower Norfair. Here you can tell the really big difference between where the runners are. All Alucard has to do is knock out Draygon and very quickly get to, you know, just basically he's going to exit out of Meridia straight to, you know, almost where the ship is, whereas Darko is going to have to path all the way back up through the entire map. So that's a good indication of kind of how far ahead Alucard is in terms of time. I bet we see a check here for ice by Alucard, and then when he doesn't find it, I bet he just goes straight up and rolls on to Torian.
He's checking the item. Actually picking up the energy tank. I mean, you're there, so you might as well, and that definitely gives you some insurance to perform the stand-up glitch.
I think Darko is trying to protect his power bomb count, but when you already have 8, you have 10. If you were to use 2 in that room and only have 8 afterwards, that's still plenty to get through what he needs to get through, even without bombs. In fact, he wouldn't even necessarily have to go to Firefly, so maybe he's just doing it to be super careful. Man, those pirates can be really trolly in this room.
Yep, definitely why it's called the worst room in the game.
So yeah, it looks like Alucard, and unless he decides to continue looking for ice, I think he's just going to bounce up out of here and start making his way to Torian. Man, it always, like, it's always a bummer when you see how much damage those key hunters do. Like, even with both suits, like 50 a pop is definitely not a small amount.
It is not ideal, no. Especially because Darko is probably aware he doesn't have time to hunt down more energy tanks, so he's just got to rely on his execution here.
True, and both, we already know he doesn't know this, but he's not going to come across an energy tank after Ridley, so he's either going to have to farm up afterwards or simply, carry on and risk it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was hoping for power bombs at the power bombs of shame there, just because his count is so low and he soft blocked last time. I don't think he needs it, but it would help him.
Yeah, he doesn't. Well, the main thing would be, for him to have 15. Of course, never mind. I take that back. He already has ice, so he doesn't care. But yeah, it would help him on the way out. But luckily, as you pointed out, he can farm those. I call them the little fuzzy butts or whatever in the room before Ridley. He can farm those for like a 98, 99% drop rate. So he should be fine. Not to mention the fact that he can save 2 power bombs in Wasteland if he can do the speedball strat. So hopefully he's aware of that. And now Alucard getting ready to head straight down to Torian. For anybody who's not aware, the cutscene has been removed for the randomizer, so he doesn't have to wait for the gate to open.
Darko being real conservative with his ammo here, choosing to use missiles instead of supers. So if you're Darko, do you go and pick up the item behind Ridley?
Yeah, I would. Just because, number one, even if it's just an E-tank, that's going to put you in a lot safer of a position. And then on top of that, he knows where Wave is, but he doesn't know where Plasma is. Even Screw It technically here, if you were to pick it up, would make exiting, incredibly easy. In fact, you could even kind of argue that picking up Screw Attack would be kind of like getting an E-tank because, it would just be so easy to just jump through everything and not have to worry about getting hit. So I'm not surprised that he checked there.
Yeah, and going through the lower Norfair escape with just 2 E-tanks, it's a little bit dicey. As you can see, his energy is already down to 119. Yeah, Darko's got to be super careful of this escape.
He does, and what I was going to mention, one strat you see some people do is they will farm the metal pirates or ninja pirates if they get this far and need health, because they just give you so much, energy and whatnot typically. So he elected not to do that, but at this point he can only take 2 hits from a key hunter without dying. And even though he can clip through them with Plasma, everybody who's run the game knows they don't always give you the greatest of patterns. And he's definitely going to have to deal with the 3 Musketeers. So let's see what happens here.
Yeah, it looks like he's just playing it safe here and trying to eliminate the key hunters with his newfound Plasma Beam.
Yeah, definitely a good play, just a little bit slower. Alucard now past the baby Metroid, filling back up and heading down to either attempt a speed booster Zeb skip or simply to destroy the Zebs. And looks like he's electing to do what I would do. Oh, Darko. Okay, good. He made it through. Ooh, nice dodge there. He made it through the Three Musketeers. Unfortunately, that last shot can be difficult if you don't have wave, because if you don't have wave, you have to shoot it 3 times. So he had to shoot it twice, dodge, and then get up through the last one. But looks like Alucard is now starting Mother Brain 2. Can't imagine having too many issues here. Probably will take... He's probably going to fire his 40 supers, which will do about 2/3 of the damage. And he will probably have to fire somewhere in the ballpark of like 8, 9, 10 charge shots if he hits all these supers. He has most of the damage. Ice Beam, in terms of old route beam, Ice adds the least amount of damage. Yeah, so I think that's what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I think if you're not using any supers, it takes 24 shots with this beam combo to kill Mother Brain.
Yeah, so he only had to hit her about, I don't know, what, 9 times there to trigger it, so he's in good shape.
And he's not going for the stand-up glitch.
Certainly don't blame him there. You know, it just kind of depends on where your health is and how comfortable you are with it, so he just elected to just kind of let it roll this time.
Yeah, and you got to do what you're comfortable with. If you don't feel comfortable doing the stand-up glitch, if you think it's not a safe decision, then it's probably best to just skip it.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people will make a big deal about saving every tiny second that you can, and, you know, in theory, yes, that would be correct, but at the same time, you know, sometimes you open yourself up to risk that you wouldn't normally have if you try to do certain things that you don't want to do. And, oh, wow, Darko, I'm going to have to say that that's probably a shout out to Sephi and Punk there. Oh, boy. Looks like Sephi will not be having visitation rights to that fish on the weekends. Sorry, Sephi. Sorry, Punk.
Punk just devastated in the chat. Very unfortunate.
My goodness. But yeah, long story short, in most races, like if you look at the Hall of Fame, the difference between getting stand up and not getting it would have only decided, like, I don't know, just 2 or 3 total races, if even that. So it's not something that you have to do to be able to win.
So Darko not bothering to refill at the ship. Like, I'm pretty sure he's aware he needs to go if he has any chance of winning this race. But going to Torian with only 85 energy is also pretty dicey.
Yeah, and maybe even more important than that. I mean, or equally important, I would say, is the fact that he only has 2 super missiles. And with only having 10 regular missiles max, you know, you're not going to be able to refill to a very high number. I'm not saying that he's unlikely to get a bunch of super drops, but sometimes, you know, I've seen runs and I've had experienced runs where I get down here and I just don't get hardly any drops from the super or from the Metroids. So, but I'm sure he'll probably be fine.
It's something he has to count on to get those drops, though, because how many missiles/super missiles does he need to take care of Mother Brain's tank?
Okay, so I think the last time I did commentary, this was brought up and we kind of worked through it. So it's a combination of 2 things, actually. You need to have 3,000 damage on Mother Brain 1, like on, you know, her head or whatever. But in addition to that, Mother Brain 1 will not trigger the ending sequence. Oh, this could be tricky here.
This could be catastrophic. He really needs to watch his health.
Yeah, and he didn't get the 3rd Metroid, but he should be fine in terms of just shooting it or whatever. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. My bad. But anyway, you need 3,000 damage. GG to Alucard, by the way, finishing up and evening up the series. So we will have a game 3 here shortly. So we get one more really interesting race, because so far both of these have been, incredibly interesting. But so you need the 3,000 damage, and you need 18 total projectiles. So you have to have 6 projectiles. Typically, you want to do 6 regular missiles to break the glass initially. Then you have to get 3,000 damage on Mother Brain. But if you only do it with supers, and you hit her 10 times, that will only be 16 total projectiles, and it will not trigger the cutscene or the next fight or whatever against Mother Brain 2. So then you have to fire 2 more missiles. So optimally, what you would do is you would break the glass with 6 missiles, shoot 3 missiles for a total of 9 shots and 300 damage, and then fire off 9 supers for 2,700 more damage. And that would get you to Mother Brain 2.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. As you were mentioning that, Darko just shot his super missiles at the Metroid.
Yeah, I would assume he did that on
I don't think
purpose.
he can finish the game now.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of memeing it up here. Giving a shout out to our boy Kojak out there.
Yeah, probably a little frustrated that he lost this race pretty much entirely due to that soft lock.
Yeah, for sure. And once again, this just kind of goes to show you that when you're in a race scenario and you don't know exactly what's going on, safety saves can be very important in these randos. There's been multiple times we've seen people pass up safety saves and, accidentally die or have something bad happen. So very unfortunate for Darko, because he ran a really excellent race. But here we are, evened up at 1-1, and we got one final game to go before we see who survives and who is put out of the tournament. Chris, I'm going to take a short break before the next run. Are you going to be on commentary for the next one as well?
I sure will be, but I will also be taking a very short break as these runners get ready for their next race. So we'll be back in about 5-10 minutes.
Okay, so before we take a short break, quick shout-outs. Make sure to follow the runners, Darko and Alucard. Both very entertaining, not only just for Super Metroid, but other games. Also, big shout-out to Ponk, who has been tracking for us. Again, congratulations to him on his victory today. Both Chris and I will be back shortly for Game 3 between Darko and Alucard. And, enjoy your break.